Welcome, friends. I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. Welcome to Sunrise Yin. Today, we're going to be doing a practice on letting go. What I think you'll need to be safe, to enjoy, and to get the most out of your practice are a yoga mat, a blanket, at least one blanket. I like a half blanket folded out in such a way that the long edge of the half blanket is perpendicular to the long edge of my mat. I would like you to have at least one foam or cork yoga block. Two is better, but I'd like you to have at least one. And I'd like you to have a yoga bolster. Now, this is a prop that not everyone has. If you don't have a yoga bolster, one thing that you likely have that makes a really good surrogate is a couch cushion. So pause your recording, roll out your mat, gather up your props. When you're ready, press play, and I'll meet you on your mat for our Sunrise Yin practice. And for all of us, friends, let me have you start in a seated position today. So, given the season, the fact that it's the new year, I wanted to talk about the tradition of New Year's resolutions. So I'll give a Dharma talk during the practice on that. What I think is really more, to me, more important before we talk about what we're going to take on this New Year's, letting go the stuff from the past year that was no longer serving us. So that's really the physical focus of this practice. Is going to be a practice on letting go. But for the seated position, we're going to start with a balancing breath. This is called box breathing. Um, Box breathing is a balancing breath in terms of the nervous system. It'll bring us up. So if we're feeling low energy, sluggish, I would call that a parasympathetic nervous system activation. It'll bring us back up to center. If we're keyed up, geared up, stressed out, I would call this sympathetic nervous system activation. It'll bring us back down into center. Now, what to expect? I will cue you. The inhale and the exhale will be through the nose. I'll cue you for 4 count inhale, a 4 count hold at the top, a 4 count exhale, and then a 4 count hold at the bottom. We're going to do that for a total of 10 times. So from the seated position, and by the way, notice like if your pelvis is rocking forward, you probably want to put some support under your hips. So one way to tell, if you look at my knees in a seated position, my knees are kind of flared upward, that's an indication of a bit of immobility in the hips. If I sit up like that for more than 45 seconds, I'm going to have lower back pain. All cured when I lift my hips up a little. So lift them or don't, it's totally up to you, friends. You know your body. All right, let's start with a cleansing breath. So find really good posture, stack your joints, float your head over your shoulders, over your hips. And then on your next inhale, press into your seat, grow out of your heart and the crown of your head for the stars. And then as you exhale, maintain that length along your spinal column. Let all your soft tissues fall down toward earth. And then I'll have you inhale through your nose for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing, just minus the counting. Inhale. That's it. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, two more, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, eyes are closed, body is relaxed, breath is normal and natural. All right, friends, gently blink your eyes open. And however you want to get there, just ask that you use good body mechanics. Make your way into a reclined butterfly pose. So come down onto your back, grab two blocks, lower all the way down to your back, bring the soles of your feet together, let gravity draw your knees down toward the earth as the pinky edge blades of your feet press into the earth. And if you don't have a provocative reason to do so, thank you, Kate, place blocks under your knees or your thighs. And then with your hands, you can do anything you like. So you can have hands palms down on the bottom of the rib cage on either side of the abdomen. You can have the backs of your hands anywhere out on the gym floor. But just as a reminder, in this yin practice, I want you to feel something. So we're looking for a threshold between discomfort and pain. So if you think about like what that feels like, I've heard this described by teachers as a dull achiness or a bitterness or a diffuse pressure. Or maybe it works better, it does for me, maybe it works better for you to have a numerical scale. So if you think about a scale of sensation that starts at 0 where you felt nothing and goes to 10, which would be excruciating, you'd be compelled to move. Start out at a level that's at least a 4 and not more than a 6. And in each shape, I'll give you some opportunities to find some depth. Just a regular natural breath is just fine. Although if you're accustomed, you guys are yoga practitioners, if you're accustomed to an ujjayi breath from a vinyasa practice, that might also be a nice focal point for your attention. So you can use that breath and you don't need to. All right, friends, check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. And if you're in that range of 4 to 6, you don't have to change a thing. But sometimes when we exercise some restraint and opening up and we don't go full bore sensation, with a little bit of time, our body will open up some space and ask for more. That might look like flipping your blocks down to a lower level. It might look like removing your blocks. You could also place one block under the center of your back where the long edge of the block is parallel to the long edge of your spine. And then maybe reach your arms up over your head and find this rounded shape of the back. Now, if this doesn't feel good in your neck, and I can tell you it does not in mine, I'm going to interlace my hands at the base of my skull. So we're looking to open up space on the insides of the thighs. So these are hip AD adductors, but also along the front plane of the body. Inside of the thighs are kidney and liver meridians. The front plane of the body is stomach and spleen. We'll also perhaps get a little, especially if you put a block under the lower back, get a little gentle compression along the back line of the body, which is the realm of urinary bladder. All right, friends, if you've got a block under your lower back, I'd like you to remove that block, or under the center of your back, I'd like you to remove the block. Now, if there's a graceful way to get out of that, I'm not sure what it is, but there's a safe way. Just roll off to the side, remove the block, and then roll over onto either side. Press yourself up into a tabletop shape, grab your bolster. And our next shape is going to be Anahatanasana, puppy dog pose. So tabletop first, float your shoulders over your wrists, float your hips over your knees. Take about a third of the bolster, have the bolster in between your hands where about a third of the bolster is below the level of your wrists. And this pose is about opening up the front plane of the body. So walk the hands forward, about 3 handprints forward. Turn the fingers out wide. And note here, the human tendency is for the hips to either scoop forward or to press back. I would like them more or less floating over your knees. And then lower your heart and your head down to your bolster. So in vinyasa, sometimes you'll see this being done as a forearm plank, and that's not wrong. It's not wrong, but it depends on what you're optimizing for. If you're optimizing for core strength and six-pack abs, this is a fine choice. But I don't care about six-pack abs for me or for you because I know they're not a good indicator of health. And what I'm interested in is you opening up the front plane of your body. My teacher Annie describes the way that we skillfully get into the yin pose as being analogous to the way that we skillfully get in and out of a tub full of very hot bath water. If the water is really hot, Annie says, we wouldn't just plop down into the water. You burn yourself. Instead, when the water is really hot, we fish the big toe in. Maybe fish it in and even take it out a few times until it starts to acclimate. And then we put in the ball of the foot, and then the heel, the ankle, maybe the other foot. And over time, comfortably, safely, with restraint, we're safely in that very hot bathtub, fully immersed. Annie says we get into a yin pose skillfully in the same way, adding a little sensation at a time. Check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. And if you've opened up some space, a couple of options. One is just remove the bolster. Allow your heart to float closer down toward the earth. Or you could even place, this will be too much for me, you could place blocks under your hands, which will give your heart another 3 or 4 inches of lift. Now, one special place that I want you to look for sensation here is in the tops of your shoulders. If you get a pinching sensation, I'm not a physical therapist or an orthopedic surgeon. I'm not qualified to diagnose it, but it's often impingement, right? So I would err on the side of caution. And if you get that pinching in the tops of your shoulders, place the bolster back under your heart. Lift yourself up a little higher. All right, friends, we're going to come out of this pose. Before you do anything, my preference, my preference is for you to not muscle your way out of this pose. Rather, rock the crown of your head forward toward the top edge of your mat. Bring the weight into your forearms and release your hips down to the earth. And I'm going to turn and face towards you just for demonstration purposes, but we're going to take a resting pose. This is half rock. So come onto your belly. Bring your elbows out in line with your shoulders, fingers reaching past the top edge of your mat. Rest your right cheek on the mat. Lift your left, so gaze is to the left. Lift your left knee up in the general direction of your left elbow. That left knee doesn't have to touch, it doesn't even have to be close, just in that general direction. Yep, looks really good, you guys. Notice if you're holding on to any muscular engagement and gripping here. You really don't need any. So if you find that, one, it's okay. Two, see if you can choose to let that go. All right, friends, slide your left knee back down in line with your right. Grab a block and then walk your forearms up under your body. Find a Sphinx pose. Floating your shoulders over your elbows. Place the block in between your wrists at the highest height. Yep, perfect, you guys. Now lengthen your legs out long. Maybe press the tops of your feet into the earth as you would in a vinyasa version, just for a breath, and then relax your legs. Everything from the toes to your lower back goes soft. Maybe your ankles roll to the inside of the outside. And notice there'll be some muscular engagement required from you to keep your shoulders floating over your wrists, but everything else you can release, maybe even your forehead coming down to the mat. If you find, like I'm pretty type A, and if my hands are palms down, I find myself compelled to pull myself forward, that's okay. Just flip your palms up. This is sometimes taught with no block under the forehead and the forehead just reaching down toward the earth. So if you're moved to do that, friends, like hopefully you know this already. You don't work for me, I work for you. So if you're moved to do that, do that. The reason I don't cue it is because the fascia, the layer of connective tissue that we have from the crown of the head to the tips of our toes, the soles of our feet, it takes on the shapes we habitually take over time. And we spend so much time craning our necks forward, looking at laptop computers and smartphones and such, that I don't want to reinforce that in our practice. You might see sometimes people for whom this is really prominent. They'll even have a bulge at the back of their neck and their head is craned forward. It's called upper cross syndrome, right? So I just don't want to reinforce that. So when I find I'm ready to make some kind of a change in my life, as we do when we take on New Year's resolution, as I led with, I often find it skillful to let go of some of what I've been carrying in the past first. And often these prisons that we find ourselves confined in are self-constructed. So number one is to release ourselves from the obligation for things to look like the picture in our head said that they should look. Maybe visualize that image that you had in your head that you feel bound to, and maybe even enslaved to. Visualize it as a helium balloon held by a string tethered in your hand. And when you feel yourself gripping onto that string, maybe choose to just release your grip enough that the string starts to pull out of your hand. The helium in the balloon, you feel it lifting the string out of your fingers, and a light breeze pressing the balloon up and out until that string has slipped free from your fingers. All right, friends, check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. You don't have to change anything. If you've opened up some space, turn your palms down the face of the earth, take your hands out wide, start pressing into the heels of your hands, lift your elbows up off the earth. This is seal pose. And then for even more sensation, walk the heels of your hands closer in toward your waist. Right? If you made this transition, everybody here in studio did, notice what did you have to give up along the way? What was the sacrifice? So is that gripping in your glutes? And if so, can you let it go? Is it gripping in your shoulders or your upper back? Can you let that go? Is it gripping somewhere in your mind? Like, so to set New Year's resolutions or to not set them. I myself am I'm pro New Year's resolutions with caveats. You know, all I can share with you is my experience, but I offer that for what it's worth. I remember in my early 40s, I had this process that I would have this categorical list of New Year's resolutions, and I'd write it all up. I'd get on this desktop publishing program, and I have like the yin and yang. It was cool. It was really cool. It looked really cool. I had like a yin and yang symbol, and I'd look at the Chinese zodiac year. So that year would be at the top: the year of the rat, the year of the monkey. And then I have resolutions for my body, resolutions for my mind, resolutions for my spirit, resolutions for my finances, my career, all out in bullets, nice and neat. And it looks so good pinned up in my workspace. Like the only thing that wasn't on my New Year's resolution list was like create world peace. Ambitious would be an understatement. All right, friends, check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. And then if you transition from Sphinx into Seal, come back into Sphinx, flip your block down to the lowest height, or rather a medium height, and then slide the palm of your right hand forward. Create a big generous space under your right elbow. Good. Now wrap your left arm across the front plane of your body under your chest. Palm faces the sky. Good. Wrap your right arm over your left. That's it. Walk, walk, walk the fingers of each hand out in opposite directions. Right? And feel what's happening in your shoulders. And if you're at a 6 right here, don't change anything. If your body wants more sensation, tuck your toes under your feet, rock the crown of your head forward, and then maybe release your forehead down to the block. Right? One of the nice things about the shape is once we've got the target level of sensation and the target place in our body, there's no muscular engagement that's required at all. So if you feel any muscular engagement, you could practice letting it go. Right, so that ambitious New Year's resolution list, I would have one on my refrigerator, I put one up in my workspace, and I would work like a dog the first couple of months of the year trying to live up to all of these very high standards. And I'd experience some success in some of those areas. And then eventually I would start slipping, right? Inevitable. Slip a little at a time, maybe on one thing or another thing. Some of the things I would never even approach. But by the middle of March, spring, I was a state park superintendent. Spring breaks there. I basically abandoned this ambitious New Year's resolution list, proclamation, and let it all go, completely exhausted from trying to live up to that impossible standard for the first 2.5 months of the year, and feeling very much a failure for falling short of living up to it. All right, friends, if you tucked your toes under your feet behind you, or rock the crown of your head forward rather, tuck your toes under your feet again, unwind, come back to Sphinx pose. We're just going to set up for the other side. Slide the palm of your left hand forward, wrap your right arm under your chest, left arm, over your right, and then walk, walk, walk the fingers out in opposite directions. Again, if you're getting your six right here, you're home. For more sensation, tuck your toes, rock the crown of your head further forward. Right. So I approach New Year's resolutions like that, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years in a row. And I finally realized like it was completely um, disenchanting about the New Year's resolution tradition. And then 2014 or 2015, I decided to take a different approach. It's like obviously what I was doing in the past, it's not working. Right? So how can I approach this now in a way that might work? So what I decided to do is to pick one thing that was simple, that didn't take a lot of time, but that might be impactful. And so then it's a matter of finding out what is that one thing. All right, friends, tuck your toes under your feet, rock your heels back behind you, unwind your arms, remove your block, lower your heart down to the earth, and then hands under your shoulders, press yourself up onto your knees, and grab two blocks in a bolster, and we're going to set up for saddle pose. So with saddle, first block at the lowest height, long edge of the block perpendicular to the long edge of your mat. Second block at the highest height, and then lay your bolster over the whole kit and caboodle. This is what my yin teacher Annie calls, and you guys, for your purposes on your mat, if you would change the orientation of the blocks, you're going to want your bolster facing the long edge of your mat. Yep, just like that, Amy. Yep, that's it. That's it. That's it, guys. You got it. All right. So my yin teacher Annie, she calls this a lazy boy recliner. So let me show you what half saddle looks like first. So if you've got, say in this case, my left heel is folded back behind me, right leg out front, bring your lower back up against the bolster, and then lay your whole spine down on the mat. For some bodies, this is going to be plenty. This is going to be ample sensation. So I'm going to do a full saddle with the support of the bolster today. And for some of you, you may not need the bolster at all. Like if I don't use the bolster, you'll have to call EMS. Release your seat down toward the earth, lower your torso back onto your support. And you will feel this, I expect, first place might be the quads, the tops of the knees, but also hip flexors, lengthening out those hip flexors. Everybody getting something in the 4 to 6 range? So what is that one thing you could do that is simple, that wouldn't take a lot of time, but might be impactful? So for me at that time, I was a big coffee drinker. Right? I worked until like midnight to 2 a.m. 3 or 4 nights a week at that time. So like I drank coffee. I started first thing in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. First thing I put on my body was 3 or 4 cups of coffee. And then throughout the day, so I could try to stay sharp until midnight or two. And I thought, what if, like, instead of not drinking coffee as the resolution, because I knew then that that wasn't going to be sustainable, and I had blood pressure problems at that time too. Like, instead of that, what if I just the first thing that my body was, my kidneys were processing wasn't 3 or 4 cups of coffee, but it was a quart of room temperature water. So I did that. It's a commitment that I made to myself that takes me about 2 minutes. I usually, by midway through my morning meditation, usually my quart of water is completely consumed. Right. So I still, for years, drank way too much coffee, but it wasn't the first thing that my kidneys were processing. It's a good habit. And I stuck with it. Like to this day, it's been what, 7, 8 years? and I still have that happen. Right? So it's not necessarily lower your standards, but be realistic. If we're to choose New Year's resolution, choose something that we can actually live with as humans, like as real people with real lives and real responsibilities. Check in with your body, notice your current level of sensation. You don't have to change anything. If you've opened up some space, one, you could remove the blocks in the bolster. For some people, they can come down onto their forearms or lower the whole torso down to the earth. That would not be good for me, either the compression of my ankles, my knees, or my hip flexors. But what I can do is reach my arms up over my head and grab opposite elbows. Right? If I didn't grab opposite elbows, there'd be way too much pressure on my shoulders. But grabbing opposite elbows adds some sensation and it feels pretty safe and secure. So just to note, like had I chosen, I did not, but had I chosen to put my New Year's resolution into a desktop publishing program and put the yin yang symbol and the year of the horse or whatever it was, and I just put that one thing on there, it wouldn't have looked very good, right? It wouldn't have looked nearly as cool as my year of the rat proclamation. But I also was able to live with it and it's made an impact on my health. And I've sensed now I'm an Ayurvedic health coach and I've learned there's all kinds of great reasons, all kinds of reasons why starting your day out with a quart of room temperature water is a really great habit. Lots and lots of reasons. All right, friends. Here in studio, everybody's got a bolster under them. So to come out of this, for me, I'm going to place my hands on my heels first and then start pressing into my shins. Whew, until I can lift myself up, remove my lazy boy recliner, and where we're going next, I'd like you to have two blocks. I'm going to start turn to the side, but then just for demonstration purposes, but then I'm going to turn and face you. If you would, take one block, place it in between your inner thighs, as close to the pubic bone as you can bear, as close as is more or less comfortable. Tuck your toes under your feet, and then place the block in between your feet. Squeeze the block with your heels. All right, now I'm going to turn and face you. Place your hands on your glutes as if you were wearing denim jeans and you had your hands in the pockets of those jeans. And then start tweezing your elbows back behind you as you press your hips forward, like you were pressing your hips forward in the gym here to touch the Gracie wall. Right? This is often taught, and you could do this. Drop the crown of your head back behind you. That does not feel good on my neck, so I'm going to keep my chin more or less neutral. And this is also sometimes taught, you can reach one or both hands back toward the heels, but often we get greedy for the heels and we stop pressing the hips forward. So if you have to pick, I would rather you feel a sense of the hips pressing forward, the heart reaching out toward the stars. All right, so for a yin pose, this is a pretty young sensation. But continue nonetheless pressing your hips forward. Feeling your heart lengthen and grow toward the stars as if there was a string tied to your heart, gently lifting it up toward the heavens. Start to draw your chin to your chest, bring your hips back into neutral. Stack the joints first, head floats over shoulders, over hips. You can drop the blocks. And as a reset, we're going to do some cat rolling. So come into a tabletop shape. Float your shoulders over your wrists, index fingers at 12 o'clock. Float your hips over your knees. On an inhale, drop your belly down toward the earth. Lift your gaze toward the top edge of your mat. Open your heart. Feel a sense of dragging the heels of your hands back like you were trying to touch your knees. And then as you exhale, press into your hands, press into your shins. Puff the space between your shoulder blades up toward the stars. Inhale, drop your belly, open your heart, drag the heels of your hands back toward your knees. Exhale, press into your hands and shins. Maybe shift your gaze to the space between your ankles. And then continue flowing through this at your own cadence and breath, at your own pace. And then make your way into stillness. Come and find some stillness. Walk your hands forward a little bit so your shoulders are floating over your wrists. And in this modified push-up position, lower your heart down to the earth. Keep your blocks fairly close by, but tee your right arm out to the side, over toward, in the gym here, toward the clock wall. Bring your left hand under your left shoulder. Rest your left temple or your right temple on the mat. And then walk the fingers of your right hand further to the right. Start pressing into your left hand. Lift your left shoulder, maybe float it over your right. Whole left side of your body floats over your right. Maybe even put a bend in your right knee and step your right foot back behind your left knee. Your left foot back behind your right knee. Right, guys, I would like you to rest your temple on the earth. Mine is lifted because if I lower it all the way down, the microphone won't pick up my voice. Right, if you got an adult portion of sensation in that right shoulder already, don't change anything. If you want more, a couple things you could do. One, walk the fingers of your right hand further to the right. Second, maybe place a block at any height under your left hand, lifting your left shoulder up, floating it higher up over your right. All right, friends, if there's a block under your left hand, slide the block off to the side, bring your left hand back under your left shoulder, roll back onto your belly. And we're going to change sides. Your left arm out to the side. Rest your left temple on the mat, bring your right hand under your right shoulder, and then start pressing into your right hand, float the whole right side of your body over your left. Only if you want more sensation, walk the fingers of your left hand further to your left. Maybe place a block under your right hand at any height. All right, friends, remove the block from under your right hand, roll back onto your belly, and then make your way onto your back. Reach your legs long, reach your arms long over your head. Find a full body stretch. We're going to take a shape called Banana Asana. So walk your feet over to the left and to the point that your right hip starts to lift up off the earth. That's plenty far. And then walk your hands off to the left as well. Same thing, when your right shoulder starts to lift off, that's plenty far. So we're looking to create space and length along the right side of your body from the pinky edge blade of your right foot up to your right pinky finger. 4 to 6 is the sensation we're looking for, and that is the target area. All right, so as I've said, I think it's skillful to choose one small, attainable, impactful thing as a resolution. Here's another approach that I think is still skillful. Take a much bigger goal and break it down to smaller component parts and work on doing one component part at a time. This is a technique, it's called in human behavior, the social science of human behavior change is called Kaizen. Small incremental changes in a positive direction. My Ayurveda teacher, Kate Stillman, says, you make a 1% change a day for 100 days, that's 100% change, right? It's pretty smart. And New Year's Day is a great time. It's a great time for a reset. But here's a couple of other thoughts. Like, why wait until New Year's? Why does it have to be New Year's Day where we start to make some kind of a positive, impactful change for our health or our finances or our family or relationships or whatever it is? What about Monday? We have 52 times the Mondays available that we do as New Year's days. And let's face it, New Year's, like if we're really lucky, we avoid a traumatic accident and we have good genes and we make good decisions. How many New Year's do we really have? Like 80 or 85 maybe? So what about the value of multiplying that by 52? How many Mondays do we have? Granted, there's no guarantees, right? But I guarantee you have more Mondays than you do New Year's. All right, friends, check in with your body. Notice your current level of sensation. Again, you don't have to change anything, but if you've opened up some space, you could cross your right ankle over your left. You could make a loop with a couple of fingers of your left hand, maybe the thumb and the index finger. Loop them around your right wrist. Drag your right arm further to the left. So why wait for New Year's? While we're at it, why wait for Monday? Why wait for Monday? What about tomorrow morning? We have 7 times the tomorrow mornings that we do Mondays. 365 more tomorrow mornings than we have New Year's. All of these are opportunities for us to make a positive change in our lives. Right? The danger with starting tomorrow, and I'm using, hopefully you'll hear my air quotes here, is that often tomorrow becomes this fictional time that we don't really mean. It's like it's an insincere promise that we're making to ourselves. And tomorrow is just a chance to put it off. Like you might see, you guys, I think you guys all know I'm not a drinker, I'm a recovering addict, but um, the sign sometimes you see in restaurants is free beer tomorrow, right? It's a joke. Sometimes we do this with changes too. So here's what my Ayurveda teacher Kate says. I'll tell you that when we get to the other side. So uncross your right ankle from over your left, release your right wrist, find another full body stretch. Check in, notice the difference in the sensation in the connective tissue from one side of your body to the other, and then start to walk your feet over to the right, just to the point where your left hip starts to lift up, or you reach that 4 to 6 threshold. Walk your hands over to the right as well. That's it, you guys. And like, just to be clear, you guys have all, it's been a while, I know, but you've practiced with me a lot. I don't care one lick about what this looks like, right? It's called banana asana. My body doesn't really make the shape of a banana here. Mine is more like the shape of a pencil that somebody forgot on the dashboard of a car on a really hot day. That's okay because I'm getting a sixth sensation in the left side of my body. That's all I care about for me or for you. What does it feel like? Right. So my teacher Kate says, right now at this second we ask ourselves this question: what do I want to feel like tomorrow morning? How do I want tomorrow morning to be for me? Right? Think through the answer to that question and then start now. Start now engineering our experiences so we wake up tomorrow morning feeling the way that we want. So if we know that we want to we want to wake up tomorrow morning feeling energized and vibrant and full of life and vitality, right? Good starts to that would be having an earlier, lighter dinner, staying hydrated, and getting to bed early, right? Which, by the way, if we do those things, puts us in a much better chance to start the day right tomorrow, to eat healthfully, to exercise vigorously, to get enough sleep, to manage our stress, in the presence of mind to make time and space in our lives for the things, the people, the practices that are most important. And I think that's what we're going to find makes a difference long term. I've tried to be very clear all along the way. I'm making this whole life thing, I'm making it up as I go. I don't have the playbook for it. And I don't believe that anybody else does either. But from an experiential standpoint, I will tell you that's pretty solid. That's what my experience tells me. Check in with your body, notice your current level of sensation. Only if you want more sensation, cross your left ankle over your right. Loop a couple fingers of your right hand around your left wrist, and then move that left arm further to the right as well. And that act of letting go that we talked about to start with, that act of creating the space in choosing not to continue holding on to things that are hurting us, that are no longer serving us. I don't know what your experience is, friends. For me, it's iterative. Forgiveness and letting go are iterative. That is, I can make the conscious decision and even have some practices in place to help me let go or to help me to forgive, either to forgive myself or to forgive another person. But that doesn't mean that I'm not gripping tomorrow or I'm not still angry and resentful tomorrow. And I may need to choose to do those two practices again tomorrow to make sure that I have the space in my life for what I want to take on. What's going to be new? My new New Year's, or my new Monday, or my new tomorrow morning. Release your left ankle from over your right. Release your right wrist, or left wrist rather. Come back into center. Find another full body stretch. And we're going to close out our practice with twisted root. So put a generous bend in the knees. Place the soles of your feet on the earth. Tee your arms out to the side. Walk your hips over to the right. Drop your knees over to the left. So as you know, in vinyasa, this would also be cued for you to shift your gaze out over the fingers of your right hand. I'm going to ask you specifically to not do that. Rather, leave your gaze up toward the stars. And this will be a shorter yin pose than we would typically do a pose like this. So if right away you already know you're going to want more sensation, one option now or before we change sides is to straighten your right leg and let gravity draw that big toe edge blade of your right foot down toward the earth. Yep, that's it. You got it, guys. Did that work? Did you get more sensation when you did that? Good. Right. If you straightened that right leg, put a bend in your right knee, bring the knees side by side again. And then everyone lift your knees up to center. And we're going to change sides. Walk your hips over to the left. Drop your knees over to the right. Maybe choose to straighten that left leg, letting gravity draw that big toe edge blade of your left foot earthward. Right. If you chose to straighten your left leg, put a bend back in your left knee. And then for everyone, if you would, lift your knees back up to center. And from here, friends, make your way into any final resting shape. What I care about for your final resting shape is that you choose a shape that allows you to balance relaxation and alertness. And that's the only criteria. So it could be on your seat, your belly, your back, or your side. All right, friends, for now, change nothing. Change nothing. Just listen for my voice. In a few moments, I'm going to begin to invite you to bring some movement back into your body, but it's an invitation. So before we get there, check in with the organism of your body, find out what your body wants. And if what your body wants is more stillness, more rest, ignore every other cue that I give and close out the practice exactly where you are. But if what your body wants is movement, maybe start to initiate that movement with the breath. Taking deeper breaths into your chest and your belly with each inhale. And making sure each exhale is more full and complete than the last. And only if movement is your path this afternoon, you could start to reanimate your body with other small movements. Maybe that's the digits. Maybe that's wiggling your fingers or your toes. Or maybe that's something with your neck. Maybe that's dropping your chin from side to side. And if those small movements are pleasing, you can allow those to radiate and spiral out into larger movements, starting to go big anytime you want, rotating your hands at the wrist, your feet at the ankle. If you have a bend in the knees and the soles of your feet on the earth, you could drop your knees from side to side and windshield wiper your legs. You could take a full body stretch. It's really whatever you want. And then, with no rush whatsoever, make your way into a fetal position on either side. Take a few moments while you're there. Just check in with what is the quality of your nervous system now, post-practice. And press yourself up into any seated position, any soft eyes. Stack the joints again. Float your head over your shoulders, over your hips. Place your thumbs in the center on the upper edge of both eye sockets. Apply a slight upward pressure of your thumbs up toward the stars and a slight downward pressure of your chin down toward the earth. And bring your chin back to neutral. Release your thumbs. Place the index fingers on both hands on the center bottom edge of each eye socket. Apply a slight downward pressure of the tips of your fingers toward the earth, a slight upward pressure of your chin toward the stars. And bring your chin back to neutral. Release your fingers. Rub the palms of your hands together to warm them, to generate some heat. And then cup the heels of your hands, place them on the bottom of your eye sockets. Start to tweeze your elbows forward together. Release your forehead and your face down into your hands. So I'd like you to keep your shoulders floating over your hips, but the crown of the head comes forward. In this triangle shape of the arms, the forearms, biceps, triceps you've created is a really strong shape. To hold space for and support the whole weight of your neck and head. Start to lift your chin back up to neutral. Draw your hands into heart center. Thank you, sisters and brother, for moving and breathing with me today. May this new year renewal look like whatever your soul needs it to look like. If you move to do so, draw your thumbs to the space between your eyebrows. Blessings to you and your family. And that concludes our practice for today. Friends, again, I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. Thank you for joining us for our Sunrise Yin practice. You're doing amazing. Just keep going.